Hi folks, I'm the Bald Guy, and these are Bald Guy Basics. Today I have a product review to share with you. I bought several months ago a clone saw, a Chinese clone that clones the Stihl 380. It is the FarmMac F380, and this one is the W. It's a 72cc saw, or it's supposed to be. I've not actually measured the displacement. But I've done a bit of cutting around the house with it. You know, lopping off the end of something that's too long, a piece of wood that's too long. But I had yet to take it to the woods and really work it out. Well, this week I've given this saw a workout, and this is the last day that I'll be working in this particular spot. So I wanted to show you how the saw performs. The saw is very pleasing to me so far. I will admit you do feel some difference with the clone saws. Most particularly, I feel the difference with the gas cap and the oil cap. They're a little bit more difficult to get on and off. They bind just a little bit. It's nothing major. It just doesn't have the professional feel of the Stihl. The on and off and choke switch also has that same. It's a little bit cheaper feeling. Other than that, the saw has operated well and performed well. I am in town today. I keep a watch on the social media when people have downed trees and they want somebody, they'll give them the wood if you'll come work it up. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working with red oak today, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing, but the tree is already down and it's already bucked up, but the rounds are so very big around. My back just doesn't want to split these things. So I'm actually going to be cutting the things perpendicular to what we would normally do. So I've already gotten 3 truckloads of this wood. And I've used this saw every time to cut the rounds in half so that I can then go back and I'm getting them small enough to pick up, take them home where I'll use the hydraulic splitter. I will show you what I'm working with here. This round in this diameter is 33 inches. In the front to back, it's 30 inches. That's the biggest one I'm dealing with. But these other ones are in the 28 and 29 inch range. I've got 6 rounds left today. I'll show you what I've been doing. I've cleared out everything to the end of the fence. It was stacked up 3 and 4 rounds high. But I want you to see the size of the shavings that came out here. So what you're going to get today, once I get my safety equipment on, hearing protection particularly, you're going to see a cold start of the saw. So it's not been started since I was here yesterday morning. This is Saturday morning, and this is the only day I could really film because they're remodeling the house, and that's one of the reasons the tree was down and the crews here. It was just too noisy to make a video. But you'll get a cold start on a nice summer day. It is middle of June, and we're expecting rain later today, so I've got to really get moving this morning. And then we'll go forward with at least 2 or 3 of the cuts that I can make and show you what's going on. So just bear with me, and we'll get this thing started in just a moment. All right, I know I'm off camera here. Since resetting the camera, I've sharpened the chain. It's the very first sharpening on this, so we'll find out if I'm any good at sharpening. And just gassed it up. So we're getting a cold start. I'm using the Stihl 50-to-1 mix. Everything's gone wrong this morning. My cap came off my oil bottle, but this is a cold start. All right, you can see what I'm doing here. Not having a camera operator, it's hard to keep everything in frame. I do understand, but this will allow me to pick up these things and throw them on the truck without having to do a lot of splitting. I might split some of these. I'll finish this cut with a split. Just hit it with them all and pop it open. But these 6 rounds and this odd piece right here will allow me to fill the truck up, you know, 85% full. I spilled oil all over the saw, if you can see it there. I don't know if you can tell, but the saw's smoking. So the saw has performed really nicely for me. I bought the power head, and I forget if I bought it on eBay or Amazon. Most likely Amazon. And I got the power head for between $230 and $259.95. I don't remember which. So I've run the saw part of last winter around the house cleaning up stuff. We had ice storms during the winter, so I've cut quite a bit of pine damaged stuff, limbs and branches that are fairly substantial, but nothing like this oak. Red oak is a different beast. This oak is not dry, but it's not green. It's been sitting for a while, so it's partially dry, and it rained last night. We had rain last week, so it's got a little bit of water content in it as well. But this thing performs very well. If you're going to put this and a Stihl side by side, the Stihl's going to outcut it. I am convinced of that. However, if you put them price side by side, if you're looking at a 72cc Stihl saw, whatever the latest number is, you're talking well over $1,000. I got this for $250. I have a Neotech, they're 92 or so, or 94cc saw. It's the comparable to the Stihl 660. That's going to be a different video, but the sprocket and the bars are interchangeable. I'm running a 25-inch bar on this one. On the Neotech, I have a 28-inch bar, but that's a different thing. I've had 0 mechanical issues with this. The closest to a mechanical issue is when I first got the saw. I had to tweak the carburetor a little bit. This thing come from the other side of the planet. I tell anyone who, if you have a carbureted saw, the carburation adjustment will vary according to atmospheric pressure, elevation, those things. So when it comes from a different location, you're almost always going to have to tweak it just a little bit. And once I tweaked it, I've been very pleased. Does it have the same unstoppable power as some of those professional saws? No, but I can buy 5 of these for one of those. So we will look at this a little bit more, but I've got to get some work done here. So I'm going to shut off the video and go ahead and finish my work and get this stuff loaded. And then we'll do a little more analysis of the saw back at the house. Well, I'm out of breath. I've been working just under an hour, and I'll show you. That's, for perspective, that's 3 rounds of wood. Plus the oddball piece, which made 2 chunks. It took an hour, and I've got 3 rounds left. If I were having to split these by hand, I would have to wedge them. I'd still be on the 2nd piece, and that's not because it can't be done faster, but I can't do it any faster. The reason I do equipment reviews is because good equipment will allow you to do more work, and letting the equipment take the strain and not your body. So there's still work in it, but we're good for you. We'll see you when I get home. All right, it is 45 minutes later from my previous post, and I have it all loaded up and all split up and ready to go home. I'll do a more analysis of the saw, but basically every time I had 6 rounds, so I'm starting and stopping the saw. I think one time I did 2 rounds. I sawed 2 before I stopped it. So 5 starts and stops. And a couple of times I had to stop and turn a round over so that I could, finish the cut. The saw never failed to start on the first start after the cold start that you witnessed. The saw oils a lot, which I actually like, but I'm either going to have to adjust it just a tad or just be very aware that you don't run an entire tank of gas out. Now in this oak, you saw it shredded wonderfully, but it shredded so much doing this perpendicular cut that it could not eject the shavings fast enough when I really laid down on the saw. And the other thing I wanted to say, I noticed 2 or 3 times the saw almost sounded like it bogged down, but you know what I discovered? I discovered that there's something about the grip that I didn't have the throttle depressed 100%. I had it maybe 80%. And I realized I had to adjust my grip slightly from what I am accustomed to with the Stihl saws to get that 100% throttle. Once I had the 100% throttle, there was no trouble whatsoever. I didn't have any trouble going through any of this. But those of you who have cut know that a perpendicular cut just doesn't work the same way as cutting crossways across the grain. So for my money, and when I get home, I will show you. I've already split some of it, but I'll show you how much I've got at home, plus this. And the saw so far has done well. Now, to have a fair comparison to my Stihl saws, I'm going to have to run it for years to give a fair comparison. And that's the trade-off. If you need a saw that you're going to cut one tree that's blown over in the yard or is dead and you need to cut down, I really like these saws. They're good for the money. It's here the middle of June almost. I'm just a couple of days from, I think tomorrow's the 15th, so I can't keep up with the dates. But my point being, this saw has set in my lawnmower shed, which you've seen in other videos, and so it's not in a environmentally controlled condition. I store my chainsaws vertically, blade down. It's not been leaking oil much. It does leak a little bit depending on the angle that I have it, and I think that's because the oil bar adjustment is wide open, and I think if I back it off just 10 or 15%, that probably will resolve itself as well. But it's not been leaking in the truck when I keep it horizontal, so I'm very pleased so far. So let me get out of here. I am soaking wet. The humidity must be 85% right now, and we're expecting 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain sometime this afternoon, and boy, I can feel it. So I'm as limp as a dick's rag right now, and that's what happens when you get old. And when you have a desk job and you work in an office setting and then you do this on evenings and weekends, you find out you ain't as tough as you think you are. So if you're somebody who cuts wood all day, every day, hats off to you. I make no claims to be as tough as you are, but I hope that you guys who are everyday guys that do this stuff on the side will appreciate some of the information in these videos. Well, I'm back here at the shop, and actually, from your perspective, it's tomorrow. I was whipped yesterday. The humidity and the heat was really more than I was prepared to deal with, but we got it done. We brought the wood back to the house, and I've got it out back ready to split. Some final thoughts on the FarmMac F380w. I looked just before logging on here. This thing lists on the Amazon right now at $337.99, but there is a coupon, and I've not done anything for this coupon, that today you can buy this thing for $245.99. So less than $250. My experience over the last several months using this occasionally on cleaning up storm damage here around the house, and then cutting those big rounds of oak. I've cut 4 truckloads with them, and all of them cutting across grain. This saw has performed admirably. I think on cold starts it fired on about the second or third pull almost every time that I've used it. And afterwards, if I cranked it within 30 minutes, it started back on the first pull. And one time I took a little break. I took a 30-minute break or so, and I had to pull it maybe twice to get it cranked, but that's without choke. The saw is, it's comfortable in its familiarity. If you're familiar with the Stihl clone, the controls and the feel, even the balance of the saw are close enough for government work, as we say. It reminds me of the old Stihls, the way the air cover attaches. It is a full wrap saw. Now, whether or not I need the full wrap is a different question. Frankly, I do not. Most firewood that I cut, I don't need the full wrap so that I can turn the saw this way. I just move around the tree and use it from the one side. I actually like the half wrap because it allows me to lay the saw flat. I personally prefer that, but that's just a matter of preference. I've told you that in the gas cap and the oil cap, they're the old style. They're not the turn and lock. You have to put in your scrinch, and they're a little bit tight. You know, it doesn't have quite the quality feel. That having been said, let me just, while we're here, this is Amazon. They don't list any Stihl saws. They said they're listing all the clones. Let me go to eBay. And the Stihl 038 used, I'll just read down through them here. Here's a used one with 16-inch bar for $450. Here's a used one with an 8-inch bar for $650. And then I'm getting into the clone saws. I don't know what the new Stihl, I'm not on the Stihl site and I'm not going to go there. A Stihl 72-inch saw, though, is closer to $1,000 new from a dealer. For my purposes, this is worth the risk. And I say risk very carefully because when you go and look up reviews on these saws, you'll see 5 pretty good reviews. You'll see 1 or 2 that have an issue. But for me, it's about use. Number one, what's your budget? If you don't have the budget for $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,400 saw, this has been so far an excellent saw for my money. Second of all, what's your duty cycle? Are you a logger that are going to be using this 5 days, 6 days a week, 8, 10, 12 hours a day? Or are you like myself, you're going to go cut a couple hours at a time for firewood, cut a truckload at a time? For homeowner use, I would recommend this all day from my experience. Now, 6 months from now, if I have a little trouble, that obviously is going to change. But for having had this for 6 months and using it light duty, we had 2 ice storms this year. I used this saw and a little top handle saw. This saw did all the big stuff. I have been very pleased with it. It's heavy, but I don't know that it's any heavier than the comparable Stihl from 10 years ago in the 030, I guess it would have been an 038. So I would recommend, if you're looking for a saw for occasional light to moderate use, that you buy this saw. If you don't need the 24 and 25-inch bar, I have a Holzforma bar on here. The FarmMac offers one in a 24-inch bar. A 20-inch bar here on the East Coast will service most things. 24 would be more than sufficient. It gets you able to reach both overhead, and it helps in bending down, not having to bend so much. But it's more to sharpen and those kind of things. But I've been pleased with, I've got the Chinese-made chain. And while you see here, after 4 truckloads, I've got just a little bit of slack in the chain. Okay, that's a quick adjustment. I've been very pleased with it so far. I will give you an update maybe in a year after I've cut. This fall I'll cut more seriously starting on for next year is firewood. But right now, I would say this is a pretty good investment, especially if you can get it in that $250 range. I can buy, at that price, I can buy 5 of these for what one new Stihl would cost. So I find that to be a pretty good trade-off, considering I don't do this year round. So be that as it may, I hope that this gives you some information. The chain brake works very well. I've not had any trouble with it. The muffler has served well. I didn't have any trouble with it spitting sparks out. I do not take the spark arrestor out on my saw, not because I think it's a terrible idea, just 1 and 2 truckloads at a time. I don't see the purpose. I'm not cutting saw logs. I don't know what this saw would be like if somebody did a mod on it and opened it up. But for my purposes, this works very well, and I think it's a pretty decent bet to have a saw that is built after a proven design. And I will say, on the other Neotech I have, which is a clone of the bigger saw, the 92 or 94 cc Stihl, the 660s, I had one problem there, and the Stihl part was $100. I bought a Chinese clone part for like $13.95, installed it myself, and it's worked ever since. So we'll do a review on that saw the next time I've got some big pines to take down, and I'll review that Neotech clone of the 660 next. But for my purposes, this is a pretty good bet for the money, and I'm pleased to have it. And I have found that I am going to it more and more regularly, because it gives me the extra horsepower and the extra 4 or 5 inches of reach over my Stihl with a 20-inch bar, and I like that. So there it is. I'm the Bald Guy. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Hope you'll share these videos. Leave us a like. Any comments are very welcomed. If you decide to have a rude comment, you're not going to get one back. I'll just tell you thanks for watching, but I really do appreciate those who engage with us on the channel. Till next time, I'm the Bald Guy, and these are Bald Guy Basics.